Welcome to the Black to Business podcast. I am your host, Monique T. Marshall, and today is all about finding what works for your business. So repeat after me. There is no one way. And what works for their business may not work for mine. And guys, let's promise ourselves that we won't let our environment or circumstances limit the vision that we have for our business. Because remember, someone is betting on your business. Today's episode is all about the fact that there is no one-size-fit-all approach when it comes to business. This week, I'm chatting with Lloyd Cambridge, the founder of Progress Playbook, which is a learning platform that equips entrepreneurs to design the business, life, and world that they love. The cool thing about what Lloyd has created is that it's a result of him feeling as though current business educational providers are providing entrepreneurs with the same general information, which often leads to entrepreneurs making unnecessary mistakes that lead to failure or delayed success. And I have to say, I agree. So guys, let me warn you that you definitely may want to bring out your pen and paper for this one because it is good. So let's get into it. So Lloyd, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys about my story today.
Of course. So before we get started, I want to tell my listeners who don't yet know you a little bit about your story and how you got where you are today and what is it that you do in your business.
Sure. So my name, again, is Lloyd Cambridge. I grew up in the best borough in New York City, Brooklyn. And as a
New York,
and as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, like I always wanted to start a company, right? But I lacked like the confidence, the resources, and support to really make it happen. I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, to be exact, which is not, the best part of Brooklyn, but it was home to me and I loved it. And kind of despite like all of the challenges that I had, I never like stopped dreaming. About building my own business. I remember being like 10 years old and saying, I'm going to start my own company one day. But it was just a lot of passion, but no action. And that spirit never left me. So I wound up spending my career like really supporting entrepreneurs and business owners. So right after college, I went to NYU. Like I was a banker. I was funding apparel, textile, and jewelry companies for 4 years. So this is like way back in the day when I was funding like Sean John and Rockaware, all those companies. And then I became, I was a teacher for a little bit, teaching people about how to start businesses. And then I became a public servant where I worked for the Department of Small Business Services and really supported entrepreneurs in being able to connect them to resources throughout the city. So if they needed access to financing or if they needed access to see an attorney at no cost, like we would connect them to an attorney. So anyway, so I spent my career supporting entrepreneurs and business owners as a banker, as a teacher, and as a public servant. And then while I was at the city, like working for the government, there were so many people coming up to me and saying, hey, Lloyd, I want to start this type of business. I want to start a daycare center. I want to start a restaurant, or I want to start an adult daycare center, or whatever it was. And and there was a piece of me that felt like I lacked the information, honestly, to teach them how to like start that specific type of business. I can give them like, there's general tips, how to create an LLC, how to create a business plan, but not, how can you be successful, in a daycare business or in a restaurant, or if you want to create a gym. I couldn't give them specific, like industry specific information. So that's where I saw like this gap in the marketplace in terms of how people were being educated. I also saw that people were, there were so many resources that were made available to entrepreneurs in New York City, but a lot of entrepreneurs just had no idea what was made available to them. There were so many organizations that support business owners, grants to, free legal assistance, large large companies that really want to support the little guy. And a lot of people didn't know that these things existed. So that's when I thought about the idea of Progress Playbook, which is a learning platform that really equips entrepreneurs to design the business life and world that they love. And what makes us unique is that we design our programs. So we create curriculum and programs, courses, online and offline courses. But we do it by city. And we also do them by industry. So if you want to build a business in New York City, how do you do it? Or in Chicago or in LA? If you want to build out a daycare center, how do you actually do that? Right. So that was a gap that we saw in the marketplace, and we decided to do something about it. And we created Progress Playbook.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that and being, transparent in your story and your journey from, I think some people call it, like, initially we start off with this imposter syndrome of thinking we do or don't know enough. So thank you for sharing that.
That imposter syndrome, that is, it's real for a lot of people. To be honest, like at times I still suffer from the imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. Like I speak to entrepreneurs all the time, and all of them tell me that they have no idea what they're doing. Because business changes, like business, as your business is growing, you're always learning. It's always, something that you don't know. So, a piece of it, you do feel like an imposter because this like the learning gap is so big. So that's real. But, I think a lot of it is like really being able to operate from a place of power, of faith, and to say, although I don't know X, Y, and Z, I'm going to get to a place where I'm going to continue to, push through until my business grows to new levels.
Definitely. And one reason I'm excited about today's topic is because you actually have designed a company around, I love the name Progress Playbook, and the fact that we're going to talk about actually designing your business, because there isn't a one size fits all approach. So you briefly went over what Progress Playbook is. And why do you feel that business owners should approach their businesses this way?
Yeah, so I'm going to back up, one quick second. So we design these customized courses and programs that train entrepreneurs how to start and build businesses anywhere. So kind of going back to my story, like, I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I wanted to start a business there, but I was also very passionate about my community, about my neighborhood. I wanted to see it thrive. So Progress Playbook is really about anyone from anywhere being able to build any business, right? And that's what I'm passionate about, really about community development and entrepreneurship. How do you transform your neighborhood, your community? How do you transform yourself through entrepreneurship? I think that's really impactful. So we design these things called playbooks. Again, we do it by city and industry. We also work with a ton of organizations nationally. So some of our clients include, NYU, the Actors Fund, Martha Stewart, American Made Program, the Department of Small Business Services, and a lot of these organizations, they hire us to design these customized education programs for entrepreneurs. So an example of that is the city of New York. They hired us to design a program to help bodegas across New York City to be able to better manage their stores, right, and to also offer healthier foods in their stores as well. So what we do is very customized, like to the person or to the industry or to the city. And when we look at education, business education, a lot of the times what you'll see in a lot of organizations is that they have, like what you said, like this cookie cutter approach, right? Like, here's the 10 steps to start your own business. and if you ask 10 different entrepreneurs how they got started or how they built their businesses, you're going to get 10 different answers, right? It won't look the same, right? Because it's so contextual. So it really depends on the circumstance. So, like, for example, right, if you ask Donald Trump, oh no, I know, I'm one of the wrong person. But if you ask him, like, how did he start his business? He's going to tell you he got $1 million from his father to start. Right. But, one of the people that we interviewed, his name is Laquan Smith. He's a fashion designer based in Queens. He dresses like Kim Kardashian and Beyonce and Lady Gaga have worn his clothes. But, when we interviewed him, he spoke about his story about how he raised money for his business. And it was, hustling. It was like really through family and friends where he was able to do his first line and his first fashion show for New York Fashion Week. So again, it's very it's contextual, and it's based on your personal circumstances.
So when it comes to designing a business, like what are some of the things, I know you mentioned that it's personal and it's based on circumstances. Like what are some specific things that business owners should be paying attention to when it comes to, you know, those signs of designing or looking at location, online, offline, and considering the demographics?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we want to help you to find the best path for you based on your circumstances. So when we interview and talk to and support entrepreneurs, we do a lot of it. We look at these 10 different areas. We look at mindset. We look at refining your idea and validating your idea. We look at building your brand, building your audience, getting customers, building a team, learning how to get money to start or to scale your business, looking at the operations of the organization, looking at location, and then protecting what you're building, right? So like what measures can you put in place to protect what you're building? So we look at these 10 different areas. And when we talk to entrepreneurs, we ask them, very specific questions like, how did you validate your idea, right? And then we tell those stories about 12 different people, how they validated. How did you build your brand? How did you build your audience? And we have 12 different examples about how people built their brand and built their audiences. So those are the 10 areas that we look at. And, I can give you tips for each based on some of the things that we learned. But, one of the things that we are super excited about is that, again, like we have these playbooks that we do by city. So the first one that we're launching is called the New York City Playbook. And it's a complete learning experience that really teach people how to start and build businesses in New York City specifically. And we do that by helping them to learn from others that have done it in New York and that have been very successful building something in New York City.
Before we get into, the people that you've been able to connect with and interview, you have to give us a sneak peek of, those 10 tips or those 10 points, like a brief little information about those 10 points.
Got it. Yeah. So some of the things that we learned around validating your concept, right? So most people, when they started their business, everyone just had an idea. They got the idea from, just different places. But they validated their idea first, right? So some ways that we learned that people validated their idea was just doing simple things like taking feedback from people that they introduced their products to, right? So one of the people that we interviewed, her name is Melissa from Bake by Melissa. She makes these little cupcakes, and how she came up with that concept was she first had regular cupcakes like that, what we're used to. And she essentially baked these cupcakes for a caterer, and the caterer said, it'll be really awesome if we can get these into like little bite-sized cupcakes. Right. So, and then she really, she took that feedback and she went out and she created these little bite-sized cupcakes. And it was because of her ability to take the feedback from this caterer that she now has a multi-million-dollar business. Creating those little cupcakes allowed her to, set herself apart from every other cupcake company in New York City. And I would say in the nation as well. So I think like taking feedback and not holding your idea so close to your heart, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, so those are like little things that we learned. It's important to, when you present your idea or present your product to other people, to take feedback, to run with it, and see what happens. And, I think what we learned in her story specifically is that you have to figure out how you're going to stand apart, right? Because there's 1,000 people baking cupcakes, but what's going to set your cupcake company apart from the next person, right? And what she was able to do by taking feedback was to design these little bite-sized cupcakes that, people are super passionate about, because, we all want to eat sweets, but we don't want to have, we are also trying to be healthy and get our summer 2018 abs going on.
Yes.
So I'd rather have like a little bite size versus, like a whole cupcake. So, but the whole point is like, what are you going to do that's going to set you apart from everyone else?
Definitely. So you talked about the research that you did based on the 12 entrepreneurs. Was there a reason why you did these specific entrepreneurs? How did you find them? And also, if you can give some more points on what is it that during your research you found that they were doing right? I know you mentioned Baked by Melissa, but in designing their business based on where they were.
Got it. Yeah. So so some of the people that we interviewed were, for this project, was Baked by Melissa. We interviewed the founder of Tough Mudder, the founder of Afropunk, Fool's Gold Records, Laquan Smith, Waffles and Dingus, 10 Below Ice Cream, Con Body, and we even interviewed a bodega owner in the Bronx, a young lady from Dominican Republic that came here about 20 years ago, to live the American dream. And she started a bodega in the Bronx and now, very successful, put two of her kids through college. And we wanted to really highlight the stories of people that either they immigrated here, they're from here, they love New York City, and they were passionate about building something local, but then taking it, for some of them, making it global as well, right? So if we look at, I don't know, Afropunk, for example, they started in Brooklyn, but now I don't know how many cities they're in, but they are in, at least 4 cities in the States and, a few cities abroad, right? So how do you start something hyper local and validate your concept in your city? And then from there, take it to the world, really, right? I think that's what a lot of us want to do, start local and then kind of to grow from there. But we wanted to have these examples to say that it's possible, right? Whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you are a woman, whether you're young. So when we had the 12 interviews, we made sure that there was diversity in who we were interviewing. So for example, 10 Below, ice cream, it's an ice cream shop in New York, Philly, and LA. Started by I think he's 25 now, but essentially his name is Richard. He started his ice cream shop right out of college. He went to Baruch College and started, but I think he's Asian American, and it's just a great example that, you can be 20 years old out of college and not have a ton of business experience and still be able to kind of start and scale something if you really believe in it. Or you can be a Dominican lady from, Dominican Republic, come to New York, don't know how to speak English, and still make it in New York, right? And put your kids through college. Or you could be the founder of Tough Mudder, who went to Harvard and went through a business plan competition, and all of his professors said, you know what, this idea sucks. It's not going to work. Nobody wants to run through mud and get electrocuted. But he still persisted and did it anyway and made it happen. So it doesn't matter where you're starting from. What matters is that you are persistent. I think what matters, there's 1,000 ways to get to one goal. And that's what we really wanted to highlight through these stories, is that there's 1,000 ways to get to a goal. And we really provide like these step-by-step stories and guidance on how they did it. And for you to be inspired, motivated, and educated to chart your own journey, really.
Love it. So, Lloyd, you started with the fact that at first you weren't, sure about business or, being confident in business, but it seems like you've done really well. So how was your own process in designing a business like this? And how was it for you to get those, first clients? What was that process like for yourself?
Sure. So the first thing that I did was I built an audience. So I started building an audience years before I launched Progress Playbook. I built relationships with entrepreneurs and service providers and business organizations. I actually have 2 meetup groups on meetup.com. One is called Entrepreneur and Business Networking Group. Another one is called New York City Entrepreneurs. And these groups, now they have over 10,000 entrepreneurs in them in total here in New York. And now we're building one in Los Angeles too right now, another meetup group. So I think, before, anyone that's listening, if you want to start a business, I would say build an audience as quickly as possible, because that's where the money is in the audience. The validation of your products or services is really in your audience. Feedback is in your audience. And because I built an audience, like people reach out to me for various things, right? Like, Microsoft reached out to me because they wanted to partner on events. Fiverr reached out to me because they wanted to, again, partner on events as well. So like once you build an audience, it's a lot easier to get started. So that was kind of my first step. My second step after I kind of built an audience, like I began to create my brand, right? So I came up with the concept of Progress Playbook. I created a business name. I created all my social media accounts. I designed a logo and a website. I used Squarespace for my website. I had a friend create my logo. And, I think I spent no more than about $174 on all of that collectively. And then the third thing that I did, I went out and I created a mini business plan. I'm a planner. So I did a quick 2-page business. It was real easy, simple. I kind of outlined like my mission, vision, and values, problems, solutions. And then I quit my job. Like that was my fourth step. I said, I was working for the city again.
Wow, tell us more.
I quit my job after working for the city. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I was managing two business service centers in Queens and in the Bronx. And I lived in Brooklyn. So, if you ever been to New York, getting to the Bronx from Brooklyn is like an hour and a half,
Yeah.
minimum. Yes. Long distance. So I was just at that point in my career, I was just aggravated, but I wanted to start something. I was working too hard, and my friends, they was like, Lloyd, you always talking about starting a business. Like, just do it. Like, this is your time to do it. Just jump. So, I jumped and I quit my job. I put my notice in, but I did such a great job at work that my boss, like, she was willing to allow me to work part-time for 6 months after I quit.
That's nice.
Yeah. So like, even if you don't want to be at your job, like still do like an amazing job, because you just never know, how you can finagle the situation or kind of work it out to your benefit, So she was able to help me to, again, be part-time while I was pursuing my business. And then as soon as I quit my job, like literally 2 weeks later, I landed my first client. So
lesson. That's a lesson.
So sometimes like when you jump, like God catches you, I jumped and he caught me. Like my first client was the Actors Fund. It's a national nonprofit. They support performing artists and entertainment professionals across the country. And they got a grant from the Ford Foundation to design an entrepreneurship program for artists nationally. And, a friend of mine said, I think that this would be a good opportunity for you. They're looking for a consultant to build this out. And, I applied and I got my first contract, and they're still a client to this day. 3 years later, they're still a client of mine. And that was my first client. So I jumped and I made that happen. And it was, we now built out 2 programs, one program around emotional intelligence for artists to start businesses. And another one is like the very like step-by-step, how does artists start businesses on the side as they're pursuing their art, right? So if you want to be a Broadway actor, but sometimes, as an artist, your income goes up and down. So you may want to have a sideline gig. Like you might want to be a yoga instructor, or you might want to have fitness classes. I don't know. So how can you start something on the side while you're pursuing your other passion of acting or makeup or whatever it is? I'm running through I could tell you 2 more steps. So I did all of that. I landed my first client, and then I actually formalized my business, right? So that's when I actually I was a sole proprietorship. So sometimes, so this is my whole point, like starting a business, there isn't like a cookie cutter way. Sometimes people will tell you, oh, you need to form your LLC, your corporation first, Like that was my fourth step. Like I locked the client down first, and then I got a sole proprietorship. Then I became, a legal entity for, that was my fourth step. And I did all of these things, and I locked down more clients after that. I gave myself a goal. I said in 6 months, I want 6 clients. And I did that. And I did that largely just by just having meetings, from NYU to the Actors Fund to the city of New York. And I did all of that with no business cards. I had 0 business cards. And I laugh because, again, formal business education will tell you you need to set up your LLC or your corporation or your sole proprietorship first. You need to order business cards. But again, like the order, it depends on the person. It's circumstantial, and I really want people to be able to learn from my steps and from the other people that we've interviewed as well. So yeah, that's kind of like some of my steps that I took in my journey in starting Progress Playbook. And it's been a great ride.
That was a really great point. And I'll just say, that's what we are about at Black to Business, like the proven ways to why someone showing how it worked for them being different. So the way that you were able to say that, the traditional business route would have been this way, but you proved differently was amazing. I even took something from that. So thank you.
Love it.
Yes. So, speaking of, doing it that way, what are some of the mistakes that you see business owners make when it comes to, starting their businesses, whether it's where they look for information, finding that the audience that they thought they had was wrong, or even the way that they approach and validate their businesses?
So, I'm going to just talk about my story and maybe some of the other people that I've worked with or interviewed. So when I first started my company, I wanted to offer these online courses by industry, right? So if you wanted to learn how to build out, again, a restaurant, there would be an online course to teach you how to do that. But I wound up getting a client, through the Actors Fund. And I was like, hey, there's organizations actually need support to teach their people how to start and build businesses. And we were able to get, 6 organization clients in our first 6 months. So I put the other idea on the back burner. So sometimes I think you can't necessarily be wedded to your original idea or your original audience. You have to go where the money. You have to go where the money is. I had no idea that organizations wanted that, right? Not until somebody presented that opportunity to me, and then I, kind of went after more. So I would say, one mistake that I see is that some folks are very, again, kind of wedded to one idea and one way of doing it, but there are different ways to kind of make it happen. I would say another one is not building an audience before you launch. Again, the reason why I was able to get 6 clients in my first 6 months is because I had an audience before I launched. People knew me; they knew what I was about. So don't build a product and don't have an audience, right? So you don't want to build something and then you have no one to buy it. So I would say build an audience before you launch. I would also say there's a lot of people that don't create kind of these, like a niche experience or a niche product or service. So I have a friend, she's currently selling candles, and I'm asking her, I'm like, there's 1,000 candle companies out there. What's going to set your candle company apart? And I can give the example of, someone that we interviewed, Combody. Combody is a gym. They're based here in New York. He was in jail at the age of, I believe, 21 for selling drugs. And while he was in jail, he saw a physician, and the physician told him that he would die, if he didn't lose weight. He was overweight. So he was committed in jail to lose weight, and he did. And he also helped his other inmates lose over, I believe, 1,000 pounds while he was in jail. Yeah, it's crazy. And while he was in jail, he said, I'm going to start a business when I get out of jail. I'm going to start my own fitness studio and gym. And that's exactly what he did when he got out. But, he didn't say, I'm going to start a traditional or regular gym. He created a niche, right? And his niche is that his gym is so dope. To me, I love the concept, and it's
Yes.
the concept is around. He only hires ex-cons to be the trainers in the gym, which to me is really dope. And not only that, when you go into the gym, it's like it's like a jail cell. So essentially, like you literally go into a jail cell, like you open the gates, and when you go in, it's like a jail workout, and it's like but taught by ex-cons, right?
Wow.
Because as an ex-con, like you don't have opportunity. People don't want they'll overlook you. You know, they don't have as much opportunity as other people. So he's giving people that were formerly incarcerated opportunities for work. And it's like the most amazing concept, right? So he could have said, I'm going to just start a regular gym and just do my own thing. No, but he took his story, right? And he created like this beautiful business experience niche out of it, right? So how can you take your story, where you came from, and then create something that makes you stand out more than anyone else, although it's just a gym? You know what I'm saying? So although you're just selling candles, it has to stand out. Like nobody, in today's market, you have to provide experiential, like an experience. You have to provide an experience. The same thing with 10 Below ice cream. Again, this guy, Asian American, 22 years old. He was like, I want to be the fashion, like the Supreme for ice cream. Supreme is a fashion brand, like an urban streetwear fashion brand. So like when you go into their ice cream shop, like they're playing hip hop music, they have like a selfie station, like even how they make the ice cream, like literally like right in front of you. Like it's an experience. It's not just here's ice cream. So I think a lot of it is really based on like how can you create a niche, but based on your story, based on what the market wants. So just don't sell candles. Figure out whatever your product is. Find out like what that niche is and like what's going to make you stand out.
So, Lloyd, do you have any favorite tools that you use to help you build your business? And what are some tools that you feel like entrepreneurs can take advantage of right now?
So I use, for accounting, I use Wave Accounting. It's free. All of my invoicing and, things of that nature. I keep track of every single transaction. It's very easy. And my accountant, he's able to go in and kind of look at my books on a annual basis. It makes it really simple and easy, and it's free, which I love. I use, when I do contracts, I use this software called DocuSign, where it makes it super easy for you to be able to have people sign off on contracts kind of electronically. Versus like, mailing somebody a contract, having them sign, mail it, whatever it is, like what DocuSign allows you to do it electronically. Dropbox and Google Drive are two, for storage. I use those two things. And I've been testing out this program called Contactually. Contactually is like a CRM, a customer relationship management system, where I can manage my relationships, both business and personal. It's kind of cool because it says you haven't spoken to this person in 30 days. You should reach out to them, right? So you can essentially like categorize your relationships by like buckets. So like let's say a tier 1 person, like you want to reach out to them at least, let's say at least 5 times a year, right? So it'll hold you accountable to like whatever bucket you place that person in. Yeah, so those are some of the tools that I've been using. I use more than that, but those are some.
Amazing. And also, I didn't ask, so how did you go about building your team, and how?
So my team right now, it's me and 4 other people. So it's 5 of us. So I have a content lead, someone that helps me to build content because I do curriculum development. I have a creative director, so he helps me on the marketing side, social media. I have a virtual assistant who helps me on, all of the administrative tasks from scheduling to paperwork, things like that. And then I just brought on someone to help me with events because we're going to start doing more educational programming. Obviously, that's what we do, but we're going to be doing more like kind of unique events like dinner parties. Um, we're going to do like learning pop-up shops. So we just hired an event planner that's going to help us to really execute those things really, really well. And in terms of how I built my team, it started with me, honestly. And then the second person that I brought on was my virtual assistant because it was just really hard for me to manage everything by myself as I was getting more contracts. So I brought her on. Then we've also used like Upwork to hire contractors from around the world, really to help us with various tasks, whether it's research, writing, design. We've used Fiverr, to kind of support us as well. We've also used interns. Interns are great. So we've had about 5 different interns over the last year right now that have supported us in various ways. So we'll either post on Indeed or we'll post on the various college boards, job boards to get applications for the various positions that we have open. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll be sure to link to all these wonderful resources in the show notes. So if you're not writing them down, I'll have them for you. And also, now everything is going great. And I'm sure you've had some moments where, of uncertainty. So can you talk about an experience or a moment where you failed and how did you overcome it?
A moment that I failed in business and how did I overcome it?
Yes.
Oh, man. I feel like I fail every day. Every day there's a failure. I think, when I was first starting my business, I really wanted to start an education company, but I had no idea that I've never created a curriculum in my life. I just knew that I wanted to help teach people how to build businesses by city and by industry, but I've never built a curriculum, which I thought was really funny. And then I learned like what building curriculum is really all about. And I took on some pretty large clients, right out the gate. And, I would say the first 2, were very difficult in terms of how we, executed, because we were so new at building curriculum. So I just remember, me having to research everything, me having to write everything, and it's still like not being good enough, for the client. And then me having to go back and make it better. And then kind of getting it to a point where it was exactly what the customer wanted. And they're still clients today. Right. So I would say, kind of going back to how we started the conversation, sometimes you might have that imposter syndrome. You're like, I've never created a curriculum before, or I've never made a cupcake, or I've never opened a gym. But don't let that stop you from getting better, building a team and persisting. And as long as you're determined to satisfy the client, really, that's really the bottom line, right? And I think that's exactly what we did. Our first iteration of our first 2 curriculums that we built for clients, they were horrible. They sucked. It wasn't great. And we had to, through the tears and the stress, we persisted anyway, made it happen, and we created something amazing.
And to end on a good note, what are some things that you're looking forward to with, your business, and what are some things that we'll see in the future?
Yeah, so we are the New York City Playbook is actually going to be launching in April. You guys can go to our website, www.progressplaybook.com, where you can find out more information about the 12 entrepreneurs that we interviewed in New York City, and we are building a whole learning experience or really around their stories, from an online course, an offline course, a workbook, intensive 4-day programs to help you to build your own journey and start your own journey building a business in New York City. And the goal is really to take this concept, take this platform, and to take it to different cities throughout the nation and eventually throughout the world. But we'll be launching in LA as well later on this year. So we're excited about that. We're also giving a talk about designing your startup journey. We're talking at Harlem Community Development Corporation in partnership with Citibank, Harlem Business Alliance, and the New York Women Chambers of Commerce. That's taking place on February 7th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. at Adam Clayton Powell State Office Building. So, those are some of the things we're excited about.
Awesome. And before we head out, I have a couple of fire questions for you. So the first one is your favorite album.
My favorite album?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite album is, oh man, I'm going to have to go with, who am I going to go with right now? Oh my gosh. I don't know why Kirk Franklin popped in my head from, he was the first thing that popped in my head. I know that's so random, but he popped in my head. It was very random. Yeah. So I'm going to go with that. I don't know if that's, yeah, let's go with him. His very first album, Stomp. Let's go with Stomp.
Let's go. Kurt Franklin is, and I have a upcoming episode. We were talking about Kurt Franklin and saying he was like the DJ Khaled of gospel. So that is why I'm cracking up so hard, because Kurt Franklin is researching.
He's the man. Yeah. He's the man.
He is. And your life motto?
My life motto is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me.
Love it. Taking notes. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. And trend that you wish would end?
A trend that I wish would end is, although I love Instagram and love social media, I wish that everybody would stop perpetrating on Instagram and creating these personas for people to kind of envy and look up to. That's not real, and that really, I think, tear down people with like self-confidence issues. I wish that trend would end. I want more authenticity, I would say, on social media.
That's interesting, and I like it. I agree. And something that people would be surprised to know about you.
I've traveled to 20 countries. I've taken pilot classes. Wow. Those are two things.
Good. And what advice would you give your 23-year-old self?
My 23-year-old self, I would probably say to start, like, don't be afraid, to just do it. Yeah, and kind of go with that Nike motto, just do it. I held back a lot at 23. I was afraid to fail. I was afraid to try. I was afraid to be me. So I would tell my 23-year-old self, go out, do it, make it happen, and put fear away.
Awesome. And Lloyd, what is, thank you for joining us, but you have to tell the people, how can they stay in contact with you and support what you're doing?
Yeah. So you guys can follow us on any of the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's, all of our handles is Progress Playbook. And our website is www.progressplaybook.com. If you have any email, if you want to email us, is hello@progressplaybook.com. Love to see you guys come out to one of our events that's coming up, throughout the course of 2018.
Amazing. And as always, you can follow us everything at Black to Business, hello@blackttobusiness.com if you'd like to email us. And don't forget to rate and subscribe so that we can have amazing guests like Lloyd. And Lloyd, thank you so much for preparing for today, for all of the wonderful advice. And I really appreciate you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to coming again. Thank you.
Of course. We'll take that. And